Hi, everyone, and welcome to a racetrack, and a Grand Dame at that. Beautiful Virginia International Raceway as SRO's Global GT World Challenge, powered by AWS, resumes after an enforced 4-month break with SRO GT World Challenge America action, powered by AWS here at VIR. I'm Greg Creamer alongside Calvin Fish, Ryan Marine covering all the action trackside for us at Cal. After a break as long as we've had, might be good to remind everybody how these 90-minute races unfold.
Yeah, certainly fun to be back at the racetrack, Greg. 3 classes in action here today, Silver, Pro-Am, and Am. And during this 90-minute race, halfway through, there's a pit stop that has to happen between the 40 and 50-minute mark of this race. Now, during that pit stop, driver change, 4 tires, and fuel will be added. And there's a minimum 71-second stop time from pit in to pit out that all of the teams have to match. They do have a 1-second joker to play with. We should see that come into play here today.
Yeah, these pit stops are going to be crucial. You mentioned the 3 classes in GT World Challenge, powered by AWS. However, this weekend, the North American debut of the GT Sports Club. So we have a few other drivers that'll be competing as well. But first, let's take a look at this remarkable facility with our Porsche track preview with Porsche young gun, Max Root.
Hello, my name is Max Root. We are at Virginia International Speedway, and we're going around a lap in the 911 GT3R. Turn 1, we're going to brake right around the 250 board, down to 2nd gear. Big exit here, focusing on setting ourselves up for turn 3, where we're going to roll mid-corner speed and get a big exit here, really focusing on the mid-front balance. Down to 2nd gear for turn 4, with emphasis on really smooth power delivery to set ourselves up for a large exit out of turn 6, focusing up towards the S's. The S's are probably my favorite part of Virginia International Speedway, being tight, technical, and flat out in this 911 GT3R. We're going to be approaching the top of this crest at 250 kph, down to 5th gear, really rolling the top end speed here using all the pounds of downforce that we have. Approaching Oak Tree, we are going to be down to 2nd gear, rotating the car, locking the diff, and big on power on the way out. On the back straight here, we're going to be up to 4th, 5th, 6th gear, all the way out about 260 kph. It's a great time to take a drink, reset for the next couple laps coming, or the driver's change, and focus on hitting your marks. We're going to be at the 50 board, pushing to the top of the roller coaster, down to 2nd gear, focusing on a large exit flat out all the way to turn 16, setting ourselves up for a healthy exit, pushing, floating the speed, and looking eyes up for start finish. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely remarkable racetrack, and what a ride around it. Now, of course, this is the 2nd race of the weekend about to unfold. We had a race that unfolded yesterday. Let's take a look at some highlights from that one, Cal. And at the start, it was an interesting front row that went down to turn 1. The silver car, class car, but an AM car, or an AM driver along the outside, and Chris Wilson.
Yeah, down on the inside, Fred Pordat in that blue and white Porsche made a great start. And then Martin Barkey, a man on the move early. There you see him, last year's Pro-Am champion, along with Kyle Marcelli, takes his NSX from 6th up to 4th place immediately, but feeling the pressure from behind, like Hublot Ferrari and Martin Fuentes.
And that was going to stay for a while, and Martin repaid the favor a bit later, down to the inside, down into turn 1, taking that spot back. And unfortunately, shortly after that move, one of our GT Sports Club competitors, a little bit too hot in, got into John McGrew. Stu Frederick did. McGrew in that TR3 Ferrari. He was able to continue. McGrew, however, had a problem. And later, Fred Pordat.
Yeah, suspension failure in the right rear meant that he couldn't get it turned through the right-hand corner, spins around, just narrowly misses the traffic. Unfortunate, they did get the car back out there for young Max Root.
And then the DXDT teammates, a little bit of an aggressive move by George Kurtz, just tinks David Askew. Both of them off, both of them able to continue, but lost an awful lot of time. Meanwhile, in that GT Sports Club, the rocket ship of Ryan Gates taking the win. And then this amazing move here is Trent Hinman on the prowl after the pit stops, coming up through the field.
Yeah, Marcelli had grabbed the lead, and then the 2nd Racer's Edge NSX makes that move to 2nd overall. But at the finish,
it was a 1-2 for Racer's Edge and for Acura, with the Pro-Am car outrunning the silver car. 2 of the best drivers dueling it out. There is that pairing. They're looking to revisit it once again today and put on another show for Acura and for Racer's Edge when we come back to VIR. Doors open on those cars, just making sure the drivers are getting lots of air before this starts. That's the other thing here. We're racing at VIR, which is Southern Virginia, in middle July. It's pretty toasty out there. That's going to be a story as well. More stories coming from the pre-grid and Ryan Marine.
Hi, Greg. Hi, Cal. Standing here with Martin Barkey. He and Kyle Marcelli teamed for the overall win yesterday. You got to do it from a little bit further back in the grid here today, Martin. What did you learn yesterday that can help you here in race 2 of the weekend?
Yeah, Ryan, you know what? P6 isn't where anybody wants to start here at Virginia. But you know what? The team's got us another good car. We were able to tweak a few things from yesterday. And we honestly feel during the P6 qualifying for Kyle, he was fighting a mountain balance issue anyway. So I think we have a stronger car than P6. You know the guys in front of us are nothing but top notch, so it'll be a big fight for Kyle. But the way he ran consistent laps and fast laps yesterday, I think we'll have a car today provided by Acura and Racer's Edge that'll allow us to get up through the ranks.
They're the reigning Pro-Am champions and certainly a car to keep an eye on today.
Well, when you think about the run that Kyle Marcelli put in that car yesterday to fend off Trent Hinman and hang on for the win, certainly that car's got the capability of getting it done. These are the two guys. I'm sure there was an interesting discussion over dinner last night.
Yeah, I mean, it was right before the pit stop window opened, and you saw Judge there just super aggressive in terms of making a move down into turn 4, turns his teammate around, and that really had repercussions because they had a delay on the pit stop. We then saw a safety car during the pit stop window, and that meant that Colin Brown, when he got behind the wheel, was 1 lap down just behind the leader. So that really had monumental effect in terms of their overall result for the day.
Yeah, and Colin was throwing down after that some absolutely monumental laps as well. And had he been up there, I think it could have been a bit of a different story with a few more cars playing for it up at the sharp end of things.
Yeah, but today I think we've got a really tight field there. The top 4 was separated by just 0.3 of a second in qualifying. And as we already alluded to, talking to his teammate, Carl Marcelli, yesterday's winner starts back in P6. So there should be some fireworks here early on.
And it should be in this track. I'll tell you, it's at 3.25 miles in length, and it's not easy with all that distance to pass on. So qualifying hugely important, and you've sometimes just got to figure it out and get a little aggressive and make some passes.
You really do, but you got to be patient at the same time, and you really got to work the strategy. Think about getting that pro in the car and staying with it for as long as you can, but extending that pit stop to around the 50-minute mark, and that will give you a little bit of better lap time over the course of the race.
There's a look at some of the beautiful tarmac here at this legendary facility, and it's a toasty afternoon, but a beautiful one at that, and can't wait to get this race back and underway here and started for this 4th round of the GT World Challenge America powered by AWS Championship. Beautiful views here at this facility, and let's get down to a very busy pre-grid. Ryan?
Chris Wilson was one of the stars of the show in race number 1, at least until things went a little bit haywire. What happened yesterday, and what do you expect here today?
Yeah, hopefully we've picked up, the fuel problem and have a good race today. I know Russell's going to have a great start.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you and good luck.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. Here's a look. We've seen the lap from the onboard, Cal, but here's a look at the track map itself.
Well, it's a classic, Greg. It opened in 1957, reimagined in 2000, but it's maintained its old-school character and charm. 3 sectors you can see, very tight and twisty through that initial sector. Then it winds out through those high-speed as tightest corner is Oak Tree right to the far right, you can see. Then the long Madison Avenue, the backstretch. Then the roller coaster ride to finish off this lap, just over 3.25 miles.
I've often thought that this track starts with technical, then goes to wicked quick and ends with terrifying as you run down that hill. And that last turn, that hog pen corner, it's tricky, isn't it?
It really is, because it's kind of off camber. You already got your eyes looking down the front stretch, and you're just feeling the edge of the road, and if you drop wheels there, you're going to go for quite the ride.
And this is the 2nd race of the weekend, 4th round of the championship, but by rule, the way it works, the AM driver in a Pro-Am pairing qualifies and starts the first race. It's the Pro, therefore, that starts the 2nd race. And as we take a look at the points right now, you can see that it's interesting the way that it's unfolding with Blackstock and Hinman. They're leading the silver class. Fred Portad and Max Root are leading the AM class. And the battling in the Pro-Am class is pretty fierce as well. So we're going to be looking forward to that as this race unfolds in these 3 different classes, plus GT Sports Club joining us as well. They're doing a couple of formation laps here this weekend, Cal, and with no warm-up, morning warm-ups and the like, not a bad idea, really, to give them just that extra lap to really suss things out.
Yeah, it just gives you a little bit of a feel for the racetrack. Obviously, you haven't got the tires up to temperature and pressure just yet to get a true feel for the balance, but the racetrack's got a little bit of cloud cover right now, not quite as the bright sunshine that we've seen throughout the course the majority of the weekend. However, we did have that big thunderstorm that rolled through here on Friday evening that really washed the track and got rid of a lot of the rubber that was down, but certainly by race time yesterday it was in good shape. Just really extreme conditions, high cockpit temperatures. And we saw yesterday Marcelli and Hinman, after their duel at the end, they were absolutely exhausted when they got out of their race car, and they're two of the youngest, fittest drivers in our field. So it's been a busy weekend. Got Jason Bell in this field running in the sports club action. 7th race out of 8 that will actually competed this weekend.
I know, it's just brutal what he's doing here, but he's been up to it thus far. You did see a shot of the GT Sports Club cars. What I was saying is, so the pros will be starting in the Pro-Am division here. So with the silver guys in the AM category where anybody can start, a huge field of talent here for this first half of this race. Then the AM drivers will take over. Some very talented AM drivers, to be sure. But this should be pretty spectacular, and add in those GT Sports Club guys that are going to be putting on a bit of a show too. But you know, we were talking about temperature in the car, but track temperature. We've seen those temperatures up over 140 degrees, some of the teams have said. And down on that track where all of that aerodynamic works on the splitters and diffusers, that can affect them.
It really does. It basically takes away a lot of the downforce for the drivers to work with. It's just basically the air's a little bit thinner. It's not really stacking those spoilers down to the ground, and also the engines are going to struggle a little bit as well. So lots of considerations, but it's been a long week of running here. Certainly a lot of the teams have also tested in somewhat similar conditions here over the last month or so during the lockdown. So a lot of preparation has gone into this event, and everyone on that grid is chomping at the bit to get going again.
And seeing the starting lineup as it's unfolding right now. And in that 4th place car in the lineup, that's the AM pole. And, you know, Max Root coming out of GT3 Cup, he's been a gun. Everybody knew he was quick. Fred Pordad, who's been doing a lot of racing over the years in GT3 Cup, more of a journeyman racer, he showed remarkable speed yesterday and then had that unfortunate mechanical issue. But he has been really a joy to watch here this weekend and has been showing some serious speed. And we would expect that guy, if he can take over and do what he did yesterday from Max Root, that's a car that's going to be in contention for a potential overall top 5 for that pairing. So impressive stuff there. Great look at Jason Bell. That's the GT2 category Porsche 911 RS Club GT2 machine running in GT Sports Club. And those 4 competitors at the back of the field make up that class. The rest of the field, and obviously the field's a little light, but it's due to travel restrictions due to the COVID pandemic and restrictions even within the country, not just international travel, and all these teams making a supreme effort to get here, and we're racing, and that's what it's really all about. SRO, VIR, working very hard on protocols to make sure everybody off track in the paddocks are as safe as possible, and it has been just a remarkable partnership that is coming to fruition right about now, because we are about to go green for round 4 of the championship here at Virginia International Raceway GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. And we've got a good one that's going to unfold here. Trent Hinman coming down the hill, and Colin Brown alongside. We're talking about some laps he turned yesterday. Keep a watch on him.
2 young Americans line up on the front row as the Scot Ryan Dial on the inside of row 2 in the number 63 DXDT Mercedes AMG.
Watch this start. The green flag flies, and it looks like Hinman timed it beautifully. I thought for a minute that Colin Brown might try and go around, and he tucked back in. Now he moves to the middle, and that's because Max Root looking really aggressive up on the outside, Cal.
Yeah, and Ryan Dial in that black machine tries to tuck it back underneath Max Root. It's going to be side by side as they accelerate through turn 2.
Max looks like he's got the position there, but look at Dial just intimidating, sweeping across, shallowing his exit up and forcing Max to lift, and that might allow a big move here by Marcelli. Couldn't quite get it done.
Marcelli up to 5th early from 6 on the grid. Looked for a way by the young Max Root, but couldn't make it stick there into turn 4.
Now, through the section they call the snake. which is a tricky section of racetrack, and then it leads into those climbing S's. Gates right there leading in GT Sports Club with Bell sitting in second.
Everyone's settling in now. The Pirelli P0 is gradually coming up to pressure and temperature. Someone drops a wheel there. I think that may have been Ward. Hinman looking comfortable up front. Colin Brown trying to keep the heat on. DT run in second and third right now with young Max Root right behind that pair.
The overall race winner from yesterday's race, Kyle Marcelli, sitting in fifth with Rodrigo Baptista, who had an overall win here last year, albeit in a different make of car, but great run with Maxime Soulet, so he loves this place.
Yeah, we're looking at Marcelli, a young Canadian driver, 30 years old, so much success early in his career. Has a great teammate in Martin Barkey. They won 3 races on the way to the Pro-Am title next year, but it's his teammate, Trent Hinman, who leads the way. Swept the weekend at Coda. Close to another overall victory yesterday. Finished second, but still won the silver class.
And that duel between Hinman and Marcelli, you know, at the end of the race, you were talking about how, and I was surprised you wouldn't get a knackered out of you at that point, which they were, but it was because they left everything on the track. That duel for that entire, really, since the pit stops, and that caution came and went, they were locked in lockstep, and you could just see those cars were dancing at 10 tenths, 11 tenths for the duration of the race. It was spectacular.
It was intense. It was like a 30-minute qualifying session.
Exactly.
Every lap being laid down to the max. Kind of a cat and mouse game, and it looked like Hinman had a little bit more than Marcelli, but just when it counted, Marcelli would step up and spread that gap a little bit further.
Here we go, up through the climbing S's once again, and Chris Wilson working his way up and through here. Actually, that will be Russell Ward in that car, and the 31 behind him, that TR3 Ferrari. Bill Sweedler and John McGrew, they didn't run at Circuit of the Americas. The car did, but they didn't. And nice to have them here.
New entry for TR3, Bill Sweedler, a lot of experience with this type of machinery. He won the 2014 Rolex 24-hour race. He won a GTD championship in 2015 and went on to win Le Mans in class in 2016 with GTE AM. So good to see him back. Great to see this Ferrari back on the grid as well.
There is Ryan Gates in that 311 RS Motorsport Porsche. Overall win yesterday, and he has been within a couple of seconds of the back of the GT3 field. And while this car, by design, it is a rocket ship in a straight line, but it doesn't have anywhere near the downforce and not as many or as effective driver aids in the car. He has been up on the wheel on that thing and impressive.
Yeah, those cars are super impressive. I know it's a relatively light grid right now, but we expect more entries. That's the Porsche. There's only Porsches entered this weekend. 700 horsepower they have. 3.8-liter twin turbo. And Audi has a pretty mean machine as well that we expect to see a little bit later in the season, which is a V10 powered car as well. So I think that class is going to continue to grow as we get more events, and everyone just looking at the protocol and how these events are going to run during this strange time in motor racing. But what an event we're seeing here this weekend. Yeah,
one last thing on that GT Sports Club. There are 3 categories within Sports Club. There's the overall. If you are less than 50 years old, you all have to be bronze drivers. It's a true AM class, single driver, 40-minute races. You've got to be a bronze AM driver. But if you're less than 50 years old, you run an overall. If you're 50 to 59, there's a class called titanium. And then if you're 60 or over, you run an iron. So it really breaks it out and gives people of different ages an opportunity to have some class win opportunities. And I think that's really a great idea.
Looking at young Max Root there, really starting to put the pressure on Ryan Dial. That Porsche has really been hooked up here this weekend. The handling looks to be superb. Fred Portad did an awesome job yesterday until he had that rear suspension failure. And I think he's looking to get back behind the wheel of this car this weekend and put on a show. He could be one of the quicker of the AM drivers here later in the going.
I think so, and it was unfortunate. He had that incident in qualifying early at Circuit of the Americas and just had them on their back foot. They still managed to bring home a couple of wins, but they didn't have the overall pace that they certainly showed in yesterday's race.
Well, importantly, they got the car fixed. You got to do 70% of the leaders' laps accumulated in the race, and they just managed to get that done. So hats off to the Wright Motorsports team as you see Max really late on the brakes. Thought about a move on the inside of Ryan Dial, but the gap wasn't there. But he is definitely on the attack right now.
Yeah, Ryan, that Hopkins Investments Triple F Corp entry of Max Root looking racy.
It is indeed, and if you followed his career to this point, that shouldn't come as a surprise. What maybe would be a surprise to people is just how close the two drivers are. There's a couple of decades between them in terms of the age between Max and Fred, and yet they are fast friends, and they talk about how they each can learn from one another. Max does a little teaching on the racing side, Fred does a little teaching on the life side, and all in all, it's a really good partnership. They really enjoy each other's company, and they think this could be a really fruitful pairing moving forward. And really, it was Fred that put this whole program together. They raced for Wright Motorsports and single-make Porsche racing in previous years, and when he thought, you know what, this might be the time to make that next step, let's bring someone like Max along with me. That was his thought process, and really to try and help build a legacy and jumpstart a young driver's career like Max.
And in that single cup racing for Porsche, no team better than Wright Motorsports, so making the transition was a smart one to just stay with that, and with the success they've had in this category in the past as well, with drivers like Patrick Long and Scott Hargrove and the like. So really a smart move, and it's paying off already with a really strong AM category run here. There's the guy that won overall yesterday. Currently, Kyle Marcelli sitting 8th or 5th in the overall, but 3rd in the Pro-Am category. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Acura, with Bentley Motorsport, and with Ferrari. Tell you what though, Marcelli's hanging on to that top 5 overall spot, but Rodrigo Bautista seems like he's found a little something here, and he is glued to him, Cal.
Well, he knows this racetrack well, had success here last year with K-Pax and the Bentley, so he had a good car here yesterday. It just seemed like the NSX had a little bit more straightaway speed than the Ferrari, and he was kind of just shuffled down the order a little bit late in the going, but we know the talent of this young man. It's raw, it's early in his career, but boy, oh boy, he is impressive.
He's had sort of a love-hate relationship with this track. Had that moment when he looped it up at the Oak Tree turn when he was fighting for the lead and at one point, and then they come back and win overall last year in the second race. And I think even though he had that little bit of a moment at that one race, this is a track that is very difficult not to like.
Oh, I think if you talk to the whole paddock, everyone loves coming here. As I said before, it's old school. It has consequences if you make a mistake, and it gives you a little bit of everything. I love racetracks that have elevation change like this section we're looking at right here, through the roller coaster, through Hogpen, that final corner. Then it gives you some long straightaways to think about an overtaking opportunity with the brake zones, but some technical stuff as well, as we see Hinman now gap in the rest of the field. The gap now 2.6 seconds as he continues to keep lowering his fastest lap of the race. 45.4, 145.4 is his mark at the moment.
Colin Brown in that second place car leading Pro-Am. It's a 1-2 in Pro-Am right now for the DXDT pairing. You know, the pairing that came together during the race yesterday. I'm sure they've worked that one out, and they're running second and third. Then Max Root running 4th right now in the AM category. And it was interesting for this car because of that problem and that mechanical with Fred Portad. I mean, John McGrew got clocked a little bit yesterday, and he just recently, right now, had an off as well. And that would be Sweedler, so he's having his own moment, isn't he?
Yeah, he seemed to be by himself there in isolation, so I'm not sure if he just overcooked it into the brake zone and ran a little bit wide, or if they've got some kind of technical issue.
But I was going to say, McGrew got roughed up a little bit and had a couple of things happen. But with that incident, the mechanical problem with Fred Portad, they ended up in their debut in the championship getting the AM win. And they were delighted about that. And they said if we can avoid some of the contact with some other competitors, that would be even better. But they're a great add to the championship. Hope we see more of them.
Yeah, and when you look at Bill Sweedler and running these type of cars, typically he wins.
Absolutely. There is Stu Frederick, who is leading in the iron category, 4th of the GT Sports Club cars right now, and up in front now of Carl Leinsing. Leading overall is Trent Hinman, continuing in that Acura Accelerated Services HPD enters from the number 93. That is Racer's Edge. And Trent Hinman, I'll tell you, that pairing, they just look to be awfully strong this year, Cal. That silver opportunity, and John Meraki and Racer's Edge and Acura looked at it and said, we can do something with this.
They really can. I mean, they've just been grabbing those overall victories, swept the board at Coda. Right now, Hinman's doing a really nice job. Looking at his lap time, super consistent, running between the 145.4 and 145.6 bracket. But having said that, the guys who are chasing him are running exactly the same lap times right now. So it's all going to be about tire management, tire degradation. What is the setup? Did you get too aggressive with the tire pressures to start this race? Is there going to be any fall off? Remember, during the pit stop, there is a tire change mandatory. So it's okay for you to use up your tires. You don't have to hand the car over to your teammate in good shape tire wear wise. You just really go after it.
You do want to have a little something, but you would, you said you would do that maybe later in the stint, is really push if you have to and burn them down to get whatever margin you want. We were talking about Racer's Edge and Acura. One of the things they've developed this year, John Meraki, along with HPD and Acura, the HPD GT3 Academy. And that's got something with a lot of promise and a lot of potential for some young drivers to get some amazing coaching to drive amazing cars.
Yeah, they did a test session at Road Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, so the team certainly had a chance to knock some of the rust off with that test session there. 4 really good drivers. Jacob Abel was there, Taylor Hagler, who ran with us last season, Dakota Dickerson, and Carl Whitmer, name we know well here in SRO World Challenge competition. And they had great coaching from Ryan Eversley, a former TCR champion with us, and young Dane Cameron, who went on a tear last year with a number 7 Pro-Am victories in an NSX that he was coaching the guys with last weekend. So really good program, and hopefully we'll see one of those young drivers step up to running GT3 permanently.
Yeah, that would be great to see that unfold here. Looks like Marcelli was able to gap Baptiste a little bit on that last lap, Cal, up to about 7/10 of a second. As Max Root hanging right on the 6 here of Ryan Dial and that black number 63. There's Marcelli, the MBRP Performance Exhaust entry. And we've got the couple of new graphics and a couple of awards. We have the CrowdStrike Fast Lap, and we also are tracking top 5 speeds powered by AWS. And not a big surprise here, it's all GT2 Club Sport cars.
Yeah, it's amazing. Look at the speeds that they run. Almost 180 there for the number 2 of Jason Bell.
Yeah, but of course they have very little drag compared to a GT3 car and more power. So they're going to be rocket ships in a straight line. What's some 700 horsepower in those cars, but they don't get through the corners anywhere near as quick as a GT3 car.
Nowhere near the downforce. They're more of a point and shoot type of race car, but certainly anyone who's driven one has come out of with a big smile on their face.
I don't think anybody's smiling as big as this guy. He just wheels this, and this is sort of right in his wheelhouse in a way, isn't it? He's a time attack champion, and that's just go out, lay down a time, let somebody else come after it, and he just works to try and better his time every lap, and as a result, he builds up some big margins here, and he's lapped at a 149.9, Cal. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
It's really strong and super consistent all weekend long. Hasn't put a wheel wrong. Neither is this man, Trent Hinman. And they got unlucky yesterday. I mean, Shelby Blackstock had the lead. They elected to keep him out, so as some of the other cars had pitted, we then had the safety car, and that dropped them down the order a little bit. Hinman had to go on the march a little bit, got around Baptista, closed in on Carl Marcelli, but not enough to get the overall victory. So they'd like to turn that around here today. But behind him, he's got 3 cars that are equal on pace right now. He's just established that early gap. The young Max Root. This Porsche just seems to be so hooked up. It's just not sliding across the racetrack like the others. Just really dialed in this weekend. John Wright and Wright Motorsports have done a tremendous job on the engineering here.
And Colin Brown, by the way, just turned his fastest lap at 145.5. Hinman's best lap at 145.46. And he was actually, Brown was a little quicker than Hinman that time. And that margin now down to under 2.5 seconds. So we have another look here at Max Root. That Wright Motorsports car he shares with Fred Cordet.
And I love when we had the Porsche track description where he talked about locking up the differential coming off that corner, getting on the power, getting both wheels locked together to get that launch off the corner. So he's obviously pretty sharp in terms of the setup and understanding what the race car is all about.
Boy, and that makes a engineer on a team just grin ear to ear when your driver gets that kind of mechanical knowledge and understanding, because it makes the ability to have those crucial conversations so much easier, doesn't it?
It does. And talking about conversation, we're looking at Colin Brown here. He's got his dad, Jeff Brown, on the pit box this weekend doing the engineering for him, so they have such a strong chemistry. They've worked together a lot. This is just a one-off. They've worked for many years in coordination with one another, and they live and breathe racing. Great racing family, supported by Colin's mother as well. And they just are in tune. They know what each other's language is all about. They know what to interpret by a comment that Colin may make and how much the car needs in a certain direction.
And the fact that this is the latest version of the Mercedes-AMG GT3 and the evolutionary steps that were put on this car really seem to make it a little bit more user-friendly, not just for the AM driver in a Pro-Am pairing, but it opens the window up a little bit even for the pros, and Colin really likes how this car suits him. Right?
Yeah, he's settled in. I mean, we've seen him be so impressive throughout the course of his career and whatever he's driven, but I've always felt in a GT3 car, we haven't quite seen that ultimate edge, that little differentiator that we've seen in other categories. But this year, I think he's really fitting this Mercedes-AMG very well. I think we're going to see some big results from him.
And there's Max Root. Again, somebody, boy, talk about a guy with the future. Here's Marcelli once again, who will be turning it over to Martin Barkey at the pit stop sequence. And Baptista sticking right there. He just stays about a second adrift. He can't really close it up much, Cal, but he doesn't lose it. And is some of that perhaps due to, we talk about the sensitivity of the air on the nose of these cars and how it can affect the front tire wear and effectiveness when you get too close to somebody for too long. And at a certain point, you just say, well, I just need to just ride for a while here.
Yeah, certainly it's a factor of managing the tires, but as we said before, he is going to get a tire change for his teammate at the pit stop for Martin Fuentes. But there's that sweet spot. When you're about a second apart as they sit right now between Colin Brown and Ryan Dalziel, you're not really affected. You get to about that half-second mark, then suddenly through the high-speed section is going to affect your aero just a little bit. So when you start to work on that, if you've got some understeer, it's going to give you a little bit of tire wear, which is going to get exaggerated and just make the condition worse. So it's all about managing that and just really trying to take advantage of a little bobble and just being close enough to pounce. If you sit too far back, the guy in front makes a small mistake, you're not close enough to take advantage of it.
That's a tightrope walk, that's for sure. A DXDT is 2-3 right now, 1-2 in class, Ryan. And the guy who's leading that class, I'm sure his co-driver's got a bit of a grin.
Yeah, it seems that way. They're certainly happy with their pace, just watching them interact and eavesdropping on a few conversations that they've been having. They're pleased with the pace of the cars, but also realistic, because it does seem, at least to this point in the weekend, that the Acura does have the legs on that Mercedes-AMG GT3. They recognize that, and the good news is, like you said, they're more concerned about their class and scoring points in class. Hinman and Blackstock, they're in a class of their own, effectively, in that silver class. So while the overall win would be nice, they have a goal in mind, and that is maximizing their points in class this weekend.
Yeah, very good point. And you have to remember the big picture here, that yes, you may be in an overall race potential podium scenario, but you got to be mindful of your class belt. You see that right there, Carl Leinsing in that GT2 Sports Cup car with 700 horsepower, trying to be nice, move out of the way, and all the guys behind him were going, no, I want to draft you. Use that pull and get me down the straight just a little bit quicker. And doing a nice job
big
here.
Time there, Greg.
So a little struggle for the Ferrari. So Baptista has more work to do. Just had a little bit of an issue in the downhill run.
No, I think it was just the traffic there. Marcelli was able to clear through Leinsing there, and Leinsing just couldn't hit the disappear button, and Baptista just caught him at exactly the wrong time, and probably lost a good second there getting on at the front straightaway.
Well, and that's one of the things with this track. There's so many sections like the Snake, like the Climbing S's, and that run down the hill. If you get stuck behind a car that's significantly slower than yours is, there's nothing you can do about it most of the time, and it can cost you dearly. You hope that happens to your competitors as well, It doesn't always play out that way.
No, and I think Carl was trying to do the right thing, but it'd probably been better if he just got on with the program there through the roller coaster and waited for the front straightaway. But again, that's part of the learning curve. He doesn't have the experience of some of the other drivers in this field, so he's trying to do the right thing, but it really backfired on Baptista. As you can see, he's not even in the picture right now.
Yeah, that margin ballooned to 3.5 seconds, and it was a second the previous lap. That's how bad things can happen here, how quickly things can happen. His last lap, Cal, was a 1:48.8.
Yeah, that's a big delta there as we now focus back on Hinman, and the gap at the front is pretty stable right now. Last lap, Colin Brown was 0.3 quicker than the leader, so Hinman is not disappearing as we look at his teammate and the Racer's Edge crew. Shelby Blackstock there in the white Nomex top, and beside him, Martin Barkey looking on at the progress of his teammate, Kyle Marcelli.
And some of that, don't know that Hinman would be driving within himself with that type of a margin, but you want to have as big of a buffer as you can come those pit stops, so you're not going to soft pedal it too much, even with the lead.
No, I think this is the stage of the stint where you may be managing the tires a little bit, and then, as I said, when you get to that last 10 minutes, use them up. They're not going to live another day, so you might as well just torture them, take out of all the performance that's there to give.
Good look there. A look at Ryan Dial, the ultra-quick Scotsman. DXDT Usalco entry. David Askew will be taking that car over for him, and just having a really strong run here, running second and third as a team pairing.
Did a couple of days testing here, so they felt very confident coming in, starting to learn more about this new Mercedes-AMG Evo GT3. Just giving the drivers a chance to get comfortable. Early in the season, remember, they got those cars late before the first rounds at Circuit of the Americas, so a good chance to just play a little bit of catch-up on the setup.
Speaking of catch-up, Max Root right now. He was all over the back of Dial, not that far back, and has to have backed off just a little bit, and may have been trying to get some air on the nose of that car. Kyle Marcelli sitting in the 5th spot overall, 3rd in Pro-Am. We heard at the top of the show that the team was, Martin Barkey said, 6th is not the place we want to be starting here in the overall run order. And Marcelli was able to move up 1 spot, but it is a bit of a struggle right now for Marcelli to be able to do much with it. Part of the reason is that this guy, Max Root, that number 20, is just flying right now. He seems to run up and catch Ryan Dial frequently, Cal, and can't get anything done, then just has to back off a little bit.
Well, I mean, when you look at Marcelli, he won yesterday, but when you look at the depth at the front of this field, Greg, you can't pick a weak link in that top 6. Hinman, Colin Brown, Ryan Dial, Max Root, Kyle Marcelli, Rodrigo Baptista. They're all stunning drivers, so you give them the track position. They typically don't make mistakes, and they're all capable, it seems, today. The balance of performance is really good. All of the manufacturers seem to have very equal performance in terms of lap time. Yes, they achieve it in slightly different parts of the racetrack, but overall on the lap, so close.
Yeah, it is indeed. And of course, we've got the team car of Marcelli, the Racer's Edge entry, running up at the front and in the overall position. Ryan?
Yeah, interesting because this team was dominant just like this yesterday as well. Trent Hinman and Shelby Blackstock had the field covered, albeit in the silver class, but also for the overall win. But they ultimately were caught out by the yellow that came out and were shuffled back. That really cost them, but it helped the Pro-Am lineup of Martin Barkey and Kyle Marcelli. And it's interesting that the strategy for the silver lineup really was dictated by the strategy for the Pro-Am lineup. Because Racer's Edge is a smaller team, they only have 1 pit setup, and that means they can only do it 1 at a time. They feel like for their strategy, they want to put Martin Barkey out of the car and Kyle Marcelli in to maximize Kyle's drive time in that Pro-Am lineup, and so he came in first. Then, though, they have to refuel their fueling rig because they only have 1. That takes 2 laps. That was the difference between Hinman and Blackstock getting to the pits, being able to get their service done and not be caught by the yellow, and what we saw yesterday when they ultimately were shuffled to the rear just by poor fortune.
Well, that's great info, Ryan, and great insight as to how that actually developed yesterday, and you'd have to think that today they want to keep Marcelli in as long as possible, so you would expect to see Hinman, even though he's got the overall lead, maybe the first to pit of those 2 team cars.
Yeah, give them that strategy and that time to do that intricate. It's not just what happens on the track here. The pit stops and some of those logistics issues, everything comes into play at this level of the sport. And Racer's Edge does a tremendous job of managing all of that.
And the other thing is the GT Sport Club drivers will be checkered flagged at 40 minutes, and that's exactly at the time when the pit stop window opens. So I think a lot of people were kind of wary of that from the GT3 competitors in terms of how that was going to play out. If you suddenly have some of those GT Sports Club cars coming into pit lane slowly and not maximizing, trying to execute and get to that pit-in mark as quickly as possible, that could delay you. So I think in the back of people's minds, they're thinking, let's wait a couple more laps, make sure everything's clear and make it clean. But, you know, that can affect your strategy, and unfortunately for Blackstock and Hinman, they got caught out with that safety car.
Yeah, the switchover for GT Sports Club yesterday and the pit stops, that worked out fairly well. Nobody had any major issues. One of the reasons is the GT Sports Club competitors are all pitted together on the complete opposite end of pit lane, so there won't be any undue congestion when these guys in the GT3 machines come in and do their stops.
If you think about how Baptista got balked a little bit there, that's exactly what could happen if you're trying to get into pit lanes. Coming down through the roller coaster, you can't hit the disappear button. Yeah. So if you've got GT Sport Club competitors kind of rolling a pit lane, you're not going to maximize your speed. You're just going to be coasting and cooling things down. It could catch out one of our GT3 cars here today. We'll have to wait and see.
There's Baptista in that Hublot Alpha Prime Squadra Corsa Ferrari. Shares with Martin Fuentes. Last year, this team, Martin and his co-driver, they did a little late season switch on the co-driver, decided to try the Pro-Am ranks, and they did fairly well. So they decided this year, when Rodrigo Baptista turned out, he was doing his full program in Europe with a different manufacturer, but he had some open weekends, wanted to race in the U.S., and it all came together, and we're the better for it. Always great to have Rodrigo in this paddock.
And what a great combination. You've got Rodrigo, who's one of the quietest young drivers that we have. He almost introverted. He's gradually coming out of his shell a little bit. And then you got Martin, who's probably the most energetic personality that we have in the paddock. So maybe he'll rub off on Rodrigo a little bit here and start to open him up a little bit.
Well, if you want any visibility at all around Martin, you better step it up. He is a true character, to be sure. Here you see that silver and black car right behind now Max Root as we look at the 63 of Ryan Dial, but Jason Bell, a couple of cars back in that GMG entry for the sports club category. He, as we were talking about the Ironman status, he runs in the overall class, but he's pulling Ironman duty in this weekend, Cal.
He is going to run 8 races in total. This is the 7th of 8. He's got another GT4 sprint event a little bit later this afternoon. So massive task, and he's driven very, very well this weekend, and particularly adapting to the different machinery. He's got this 700 horsepower GT2 car that he's then going to have to adapt his feel and technique over to a GT4 car about an hour after the finish of this one.
So far he's been able to do that, and he's actually had a couple of really good runs in the GT4 equipment as well, as we're watching Rodrigo Baptista, but we're getting some reports, Ryan, that there may be a little issue with the team car of Sweedler.
No, it's actually with the car we're watching on screen right now. Martin and Fuentes will be jumping in shortly, but Rodrigo Baptista is behind the wheel at the moment, and he is going to have to concentrate on making sure he's getting clean, fresh air to the radiators. They're dealing with an overheating issue. It sounds like it's not something that is likely to go away anytime soon. So when Martin takes over, it'll be the same story, just making sure he doesn't spend too much time behind the car in front of him and trying to limp that car home and maximize the result.
Oh, thanks very much. And that now makes it a little bit more clear why he would get somewhat close to Marcelli and then just get out of it a little bit. And then when he got balked there, as you talked about, to sort of solve the issue for him at this stage. Not how you want it to happen, but may not be the worst thing in the world if there was potential for a mechanical failure due to the overheat.
Well, they've got to be managing that, because right now they have the championship lead. They have a 10-point advantage in the Pro-Am ranks over Kurtz and Brown has a good run going here today, currently running second. As you see him flash through Hogbin, being chased by his teammate. But these two Mercedes AMG for the DXDT racing team, they've got really good pace here, super consistent. I mean, no one is bobbling here in this top 5. Every just one running super consistent laps, as you can see them there. No one's giving up anything, just super consistent lap times, all of them running in the mid to high 1:45 range.
Interestingly, Hinman's last lap, as they came through, was a 45.9 to a 45.5 for Brown, and that margin for the first time is down under 2 seconds, Cal.
This is exactly the point in the race where if you've got anything to give, you're going to push, push, push right now. We could see these pros in here for maybe another 15 minutes or so. We expect Hinman to maybe be the first to pit, so it'll allow Marcelli to stay out a little bit longer with the consequences that we talked about with Ryan and only the one refueling rig for that team. So Hinman's probably going to be the first to blink from the lead.
Interesting, it's not as much of an opportunity here to do an overcut or an undercut per se, because with the length of this track, it's a little bit easier to be able to plot when, if you want to come out and clear traffic and plan your strategy around that way. But the one thing that doesn't change is even at 71 seconds, which is a little bit longer than they might normally have at some venues, everybody getting a little bit of a break here after the long break we were on. One little hiccup, you've talked about it, you sit on a belt, you know, something falls down on the floor, you've got to execute that pit stop, and you, at this level, these teams are sharp.
They are, and there's a lot of work to do. It's a 71-second minimum, and a lot to do there. Driver change, 4 tire change, so anything can go wrong. So, and it's all about, you know, learning from yesterday. How close did you cut it to that 71-second minimum time? You got a 1-second joker that they can play with if they didn't use it up yesterday. So you got to feel that that could be the difference in the change of position here today.
When they say 1-second joker, it means if you go 70 point something seconds, if you didn't use that joker in the first race, you've got a second basically leeway.
That's right. If you're in the 69 something, you got a problem. You're going to be hitting pit lane again for a drive-through. The other thing is, remember that we've got tire warmers that are allowed. I know it's an extremely hot day, but as opposed to throwing cold Pirellis at the car, all of these teams have the heat warmers, the tire warmers available to them to use. So for that driver getting in, they're going to be up to speed a lot quicker than in years past.
And that was introduced about mid-season last year, it really wasn't. And it was interesting, you talked to the drivers and they said, oh, completely different ball game. As good as these Pirellis are, when they're cold, like any tire, they just don't have much grip. And with those tire warmers, they said 2-3 corners, you're right back at it again versus a lap and a half.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. It can be, you know, you can be losing literally, particularly on a racetrack as this, as demanding as it is. You could be losing 2 to 3 seconds on that outlap compared to tires. They're not up to operating temperatures like full bore performance that you need from them, but they're well within the range to actually start to feel the grip and load the tire a little bit sooner in the run.
Just watching Ryan Dial work his way down through the roller coaster section of this track. This is really tricky here. You got to use that curb a little bit, which unsettles the car, and then you need that car to have the confidence that little bit of banking that it sort of comes up on. It's more that the track just falls away and then flattens out, but it acts almost like banking, doesn't it? You get some grip there, but you got to have confidence to throw it at that.
Yeah, you need the car working around this race. It's very demanding. Has some really some corners and sections that will really test you out in terms of how brave you want to be, but you can be a little bit braver if the car's working underneath you. And I really feel that Max Root is doing a tremendous job here with staying tight to these AMG Mercedes, because Fred Pordat is showing tremendous pace here this weekend, and that could really vault them up the order when we get all of the driver changes done.
Yeah, this is going to be fascinating to watch this play out. And I think another guy to keep an eye on is the number 33, that Windward Mercedes. Russell Ward doing a nice job, and Chris Wilson, who's the AM component in that, is wickedly quick, actually. So that one is going to be fun to watch after those pit stops unfold as well here at VIR. Lots of racing, though, to go. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Lamborghini, with Mercedes-AMG, and with Porsche. Here's a look at our GT Sports Club leader. Once again, the 311 RS Motorsports entry of Ryan Gates. And he is absolutely flying right now. I think Carl Leinsing, the car right in front of him, may have had a little bit of an issue, Cal. That's also one of those Porsche 911 GT2 RS machines, the A-Tech Design entry from A-Tech Design Racing. And he's been a little off the pace on this lap. I think maybe he had a moment here, and it's allowed Gates to come around and basically going to be able to put him a lap down.
Yeah, but I think Carl's done a nice job here.
He
Looking
has.
at his lap times, they seem to be a lot tighter to our leader Gates than they were yesterday, so he's gradually improving. That's what it's all about. It's a learning experience for these gentlemen drivers here in this class. And as you look at the clock, about 4 minutes before they're going to get the checkered flag for the end of their race here today. So Gates just wants to be careful here with the traffic, not take any risk and try and sweep the weekend.
And Carl Leinsing, he's just an absolute motoring freak. Anything with a motor he likes. In 1990, in California, he took a motorcycle superbike racing school. He's driven or raced just about anything with wheels on it, and he even takes to the air with planes and helicopters, just loves it. He's so excited, he said, to be a part of this GT Sports Club. He said, it's exactly what I wanted for my racing, and that's why SRO conceived of this idea. True gentleman driver or gentlewoman driver. It's a true amateur that gets to drive their own car, their own race, and 40 minutes at a shot so they could push the envelope a little bit, and in some wickedly impressive machinery.
Yeah, and he did some races in the SRO Mid-Tensional Thermal Club in the off-season with GMG, and it really whet his appetite for one of these cars.
He basically said after that run, he podiumed in both of them, so it was a good run. I think he went, okay, I'm in. It's just that simple. Now, coming up, this is your overall race leader. Hinman is coming up on Carl Leinsing.
Spread that gap at the front back up to 2.5 seconds. As you mentioned, it was under 2 seconds there momentarily, but again, traffic may have played a factor into that. Great run by Hinman, just a true young pro in our sport. A man that is going places already, has had a lot of success, won a GT3 championship last year. And we know that Acura and HPD absolutely love the young man.
Yeah, he was on the rise a couple of years ago. Looked like he was on the rise into a different manufacturer, and they didn't pull the trigger and make him one of their guns, let him slip through the net. Well, I'll tell you what, he's pretty popular with the Acura camp right now. With just over 2 minutes to go in the GT Sports Club contest, Ryan Gates continues to lead comfortably in his 311 RS Motorsport Porsche. That is overall race leader Trent Hinman in that red Acura that is working along. Nice thing there. Did you see that? Gates just dipped the brakes. He knows he's got straight line speed galore, but said, I don't want to mess with these guys at all. Dip the brakes, let Trent slide through.
That's a lot of respect there because for Ryan, as you said, he's got a much faster car down the straightaways, but he realizes that he's playing in amongst this very highly competitive GT3 field, and he doesn't want to affect their race in any way.
And he's got a pretty big lead right now. Second in GT Sports Club is number 2, Jason Bell, in the Austria Kitchen and Bar Highway Systems Frost NYC Porsche from Global Motorsports Group. And then leading in the iron category, third in GT Sports Club, is Stu Frederick in the number 57 entry that he has. That's the GMG Racing Porsche.
At the end of this lap will be the first opportunity for these GT3 cars to hit that pit stop window. Ryan Dial, importantly, has gotten really close to his teammate Colin Brown over the last couple of laps, keeping the pressure on. We see Baptista still dealing with those overheating issues, we assume, so drop back a little bit from the rest of the pack here, but it's all about managing that and scoring points here today. As we said, they have the championship lead. They just need to make sure they ensure they get to the checkered flag here this afternoon.
And that is Carl Leinsing right now, third in the overall category of GT Sports Club, and fourth in the overall race. And there is Jason Bell, who, as soon as he gets out of this car here, he's going to have to go hop in the cooler, cool down a little bit, and get ready for another race coming up in about an hour's time. But for him, he's just driving race cars. He loves it.
He absolutely does. Recently sold his business, as I understand, so allow him to focus more on his racing, and he's doing that, tackling 3 different classes here this weekend, 2 triple headers and a double header with a new sports club racing.
Stu Frederick right there in that GMG machine. Had that little incident yesterday and missed qualifying and did get to qualify for the second race here, but allowed to start at the back and has done a very nice job. Pit window is now open, and as we say that, here comes 911. Excuse me, the 311 911 of Ryan Gage coming down the hill to sweep the weekend in GT Sports Club at Virginia International Raceway in the class's debut in North America. Phenomenal drive both days, and he brings home an impressive second win. Well done. Looking forward to seeing him for the rest of the season. And as this field gets bigger and grows, I think he's now set the benchmark.
He really has. And looking at his resume, we expected him to be super competitive. But when you're running up against someone like Jason Bell, who has a lot of road racing experience, really puts into context what he's put together here this weekend.
Yes.
Pretty dominant.
Yeah, it truly is. I mean, just great pace. I think the format suits him. And he's just making hay and doing an absolutely great job. So Bell ends up second overall, and in the overall category, Stu Frederick finishes 3rd overall on track, wins the iron class, and Carl Leitzing is 4th overall, 3rd in the overall category. It's a little confusing, but that's the class name as well. And so now with the pit window open, this is when things are going to start to get interesting for the GT World Challenge machinery.
Yeah, and we expect these pros to stay out as long as they can to maximize their lap time compared to their teammates. So Marcelli will want to try and take advantage of that and run it right down close to the 40-minute mark to go. And as we've discussed, the Racer's Edge only have the 1 refueling kit, so you would anticipate him coming in first, but you never know. John Marocchi's never afraid to throw a little curveball at us with his strategy.
Never intentionally just to mess us up. He's not that kind of guy, but yeah.
They're pretty savvy. They're a small group
sure
of made this big step up to GT3 racing with immediate effect and great results.
There is Kyle Marcelli still rolling along right here, 4th overall. That's a change. He got around Max Root.
That's big.
Yeah, Max had been working over Dial here, and while we were watching some of the great cars in GT Sports Club, Kyle found a little magic and found a way through.
Not sure if traffic played a factor in that or not, but certainly that's critical here as we get towards the pit stops. You know that Max had been charging hard throughout the first half of this race to try and stay in touch with those leaders and give his teammate Fred Portad the best opportunity after the pit stop. So try and regroup here and try and get as close to Marcelli before they hit pit lane.
Yeah, this is a little bit puzzling because the 2 last lap times for each of them are quite similar. So Marcelli was a ways back, of course, and Root was very close to Dial. Now Marcelli is 5 seconds adrift to Dial, and Root's another 1.5 seconds behind him. So he had to have some sort of a moment, whether, as you said, traffic related or whatever. We just didn't catch it.
No, I mean, we were focused on the end of the sports club event, so missed a little bit of the GT3 action, but these 2 guys, Dial and Brown, have just really been up on the wheel, super consistent. They've worked hard on the setups, but don't quite have the ultimate pace of this man, Trent Hinman, who continues to have the fastest lap. Recently laid that down at 1:45.29, so he's right in that window as he now hits pit lane, as we suspected he would be the first. And that's what we're talking about, Greg.
Yes.
The overlap there with the sports club cars. Is that car running at the minimum speed? And is he delaying Trent Hinman at all? That could be crucial here as Hinman tries to get to his pit box.
That was Stu Frederick making his way in. So
hopefully they got a bit of time to, but if they can execute the pit stop to perfection, even if he lost a couple of seconds coming in, they could maybe make it up by releasing the car a little bit early.
Well, and that was part of the reason for slightly extending that pit stop window. Normally they make it a little bit tighter for these Pro-Am teams to have to execute that stop. They opened it up just a little bit, and the telltale, we've learned this over the last couple of years, is if the car drops off the jack and sits there for just a second or two, that's good.
Yeah, you want to be waiting for the stopwatch to tell you to go, not that the service is just finished and go, go, go. So we'll see how this one plays out.
So Baptista is in as well in the Squadron Corsa Ferrari. Russell Ward in the windward Mercedes.
Yeah, they look good. They're waiting, so everything was done in time.
Anxious.
Yeah, Shelby Blackstock ready to go. We'll have to wait and see there if there was any confusion. We'll take a look at the time. Yeah, not the best.
Nope. Had he left the initial time, that probably would have been spot on.
Yeah, particularly with the Joker, the 1 second margin you got to work with. So we'll have to wait and see if the others can execute a clean pit stop. We could see a change for the overall lead here. Hinman had about a 2.5 second gap, and they left about 2.5 seconds on the table there with that pit stop.
This is going to be huge for this duo right here coming down. Let's see. Ooh, Baptista de Fuentes, not good either. Missed it by about 5 seconds. Watching Russell Ward to Chris Wilson. That's a slow 1-2.
The Allen first.
All right, here we go.
They can get a really good crisp stop here. That may give David Eskew a chance of leapfrogging around Shelby Blackstock. It'll really depend if Ryan had really good clean in-laps and fast in-laps. Typically that overlap, as we call it, where you stay out, you got hot tires, so you're getting really good lap time out of the car, even though they're well worn, versus someone going out on cold tires. But that's diminished somewhat with the tire warmers these days, where the driver who just got fresh tires has got tires that are up to temp immediately versus warming them up for a lap or two.
And Dial helping his co-driver get on board, get buckled in, get all of the radio links, the drinks bottles, the cool suit all hooked up.
It needs to be just like this, nice and calm. Great procedure. Looking around. Great job, Brian Dial. That was a mega stint there.
Yeah, it sure was. Fuel done, and the car just sits for a minute. That's brilliant. Let's see what they can do. Sweedler in now as well in the TR3 Ferrari. And let's watch the clock on this exit here.
Yeah, and let's look for Shelby Blackstock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should be coming down that front straightaway.
Let's see. Oh, beautiful. 111, 71.9, and here he
Shelby
comes.
On hot tires. Skew's had the tire warmers on, but Shelby should be able to make short work of him. Remember, David's got to get into a rhythm here. If he can get to the snake and keep the lead, I think Shelby will be anxious to maybe pounce here. Turn 4 is an opportunity. David rolling speed, so that pit stop by Racer's Edge just being a little bit outside the minimum cost them that track position. That's all about David Askew.
Well, on the other side of this is if Hinman can't get by him by the time they get to the S's and cost him just a little bit more time. Colin Brown was a second ahead of Dial on the racetrack, and if they nail that stop, and this is exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah, and Brown is in right now, so
boy.
George Kurt's going to jump behind the wheel. If they can do a really clean stop here, it could give this CrowdStrike entry the ability to grab the lead here. So Blackstock really putting the pressure on David Askew. He realizes based on yesterday's times he should have a little bit more lap time, so don't take a major risk, but you want to get the job done, otherwise you may have another one of those AMG Mercedes in front of you to deal with.
Boy, and Askew just was absolutely superb through Oak Tree. Rolled a ton of speed, and Blackstock, nothing he could do with it.
Really
now,
impressive.
though, there's that top end we've talked about, though.
Yeah, timed that to perfection. Acura's had good top speed this weekend, just sweeps by him, but really nice job by David Askew.
I think so.
I know it's not stone cold tires, but on his outlap, did a really nice job there, hitting his marks and getting into the groove. He's made great progress since last year.
All right, and there comes Colin Brown, has turned over now to George Kurtz. Look at that stop. 84 100ths clear of Jokerland. That was close, and look at the margin.
That's Jeff Brown at his best there, the strategist and engineer on the box there this weekend. They absolutely nailed it.
And Colin had just had enough of a margin, and now with that stop, Kurtz has some room here. Wow, what a stop.
Key is going to be, we need to see Marcelli in pit lane here shortly. Time is running out, so he's got to be coming in this lap, otherwise he's going to have a penalty. There he is.
Whew, that's cutting it close. 27 seconds to spare to get to pit lane.
And here comes Max Root as well. Right down to the wire, maximizing the pro time in the car. You don't have to have the service complete and out of pit lane with 40 minutes to go. Just be inside the pit lane markers there. They need to tighten this one up.
Yeah, this is mega here. And there's Barkey opening the door, helping Marcelli out.
Everything looks to be going pretty routine so far. Max Root has gotten out of the way. They're using one of the crew members as a driver assist there.
And that's allowed. You can have the exiting driver assist, or you can have dedicated crew member, but that means the driver gets out. If he touches the car even, he's then considered an excessive crew member. So this is what you want to see. Car just sitting and waiting. Here we go. Down the hill comes George Kurtz.
Yeah, I don't think they weren't close enough to the lead to even make a good pit stop, get them to the front, but they might be right in the mix there as we see Fred Pordad released as well in the backdrop from Wright Motorsports.
Yeah, it was a 72.7 second stop, so they left a couple seconds on the table potentially here. Now,
Barkey got to get up to speed. Asku's going to try and get around him quickly whilst he's into a rhythm.
All right, there's a slowish stop, unfortunately, for Max Root to Fred Pordad, and apparently there was an issue with a windscreen tear-off that held them up just a little bit. So now all of the players have completed their stops, and it's go time once again, and I think we have seen the closest pit stop we've ever seen since it went to this. Fold in the joker, and you're 84 one-thousandths of a second clear. That's about as tight as it can get. So there is Martin Barkey, who was able to get out in front of David Askew.
He's up to speed quickly. Yeah. He's found the rhythm, got on the gas. So pit stop exchange advantage to Racer's Edge on that one, but the real winner was George Kurtz in the CrowdStrike car. They did an awesome job with the minimum stop time. Colin had a really good in-lap as well, it looked like, so congrats to those guys. There he is.
George is doing a really, really nice job right now. Obviously, we're seeing Blackstock has made up a little bit of ground, but that just could have been that little bit of time for those tires and George's car to come up. But let's see what we're looking at for the times now. Kurtz comes through at a 1:48.4, and Blackstock a very nice lap of 46.7.
Yeah, I think Shelby with this silver lineup, I mean, Shelby just has a lot more experience than George Kurtz does, so theoretically at least he should have the pace to run him down and maybe get by, but again, anything can happen here. So George has been looking very confident. He made that little rash move yesterday towards the end of his stint, trying to get around his teammate. I'm sure he'd like to have give that one over again, but nonetheless, it's been a good weekend for the CrowdStrike team.
And one thing that's going to be interesting to see unfold here is that #1 Ferrari, now in the hands of Martin Fuentes, they didn't have a great stop. So he's down a little bit farther, but with that overheating, that's got to be frustrating when you know you've got a potent weapon in that Ferrari when it's completely healthy, but when it's off a little bit and you just have to baby it, that's tough.
It really is, and it could cost them the championship lead. They come into this event 10 points in front of Kurtz and Brown, who are currently leading right now, so be a big point swing here today.
All right, well, here we go. This overall battle closing up once again here. And Shelby Blackstock is on the prowl. George Kurtz for DXDT, CrowdStrike, and AWS hanging on up front as they head down the roller coaster. Oh, and a drive-through penalty for Hinman. Pit lane speed. The graphic on the screen might just be the determination of this race, right as Shelby Blackstock runs down and is about to catch George Kurtz, and the battle for the overall lead is on. We see the word that car, that Acura, will have to do a drive-through penalty for a pit speed violation. That's massive.
Yeah, that's all electronically controlled, and typically how that happens is the driver coming in. So I'm not laying the blame on Hinman's shoulders right now, but typically it's not just going to arrest the car and put the brakes on when you hit that pit lane speed limiter button. So if you come in too quick and you don't get it wound down by the time you get to that mark, And I think he may have just been a bit too anxious there, but coming down pit lane, that's going to cost you about 30 seconds. So Blackstock should have that information now. How aggressive will he get on George Kurtz, knowing that he's got to get to pit lane? He doesn't want to delay anything as he looks to the inside. Kurtz gives him half a lane, but not enough.
Yeah, I think Kurtz thought that Shelby was just going to force the issue there and said, I don't want to have him get into me, and left that little bit of an opening, and it ultimately just slowed them both down a little bit.
Yeah, and looking beyond Blackstock, Barkey is about 8-9 seconds behind Kurtz. So hopefully Kurtz has got that information as well. That information is available to all of the teams via their telemetry and via the screens in pit lane. So I'm sure they're telling George, listen, let him go. He's got to serve a penalty.
And here's that top end speed that we have seen that Acura just really strong, especially when it can draft a little bit. It just has something at the end of that long straight. He's through.
He'll have 2 laps if he wanted to just try and use this clear air to get a little bit of lap time underneath him before he has to serve that penalty. But after 2 times across the stripe, he's going to get forced to come in anyway. See when he elects to do it. He does it right now. So got around Kurtz. Now 50 kilometers an hour is right there. Maybe that was the point when Hinman came in where he just overshot that mark a little bit in his anxiousness to minimize the loss.
And when they point out in the driver briefing and in the sporting notes about that pit speed limit, they tell you here's where we're tracking it. We're doing it electronically. We're doing it with guns. So everybody knows exactly where that is.
And let's not forget he was stuck up behind the GT2 car as well. So hopefully when he got by him, he didn't accelerate away without the pit lane speed limiter on or something.
Oh, no. And the car has come to a halt, and a yellow flag waves just at the start stand. You might be having to do a reset. Now it comes back to life.
That has to be something electronically. It's too much of a coincidence for it to happen just as he's coming off pit lane with the pit lane speed limiter. So maybe they have a technical glitch. The fact that he had to stop there and reset something, maybe it wasn't working correctly when they did their earlier pit stop.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Meanwhile, let's get down to pit lane, check in with Ryan.
Well, for the second straight day, our GT Sports Club winner is Ryan Gates. And Ryan, a dream start to the Sports Club season. When you look back on this weekend as a whole, how would you assess the experience?
Well, I would say it was fantastic to be here. As a whole, our whole team executed just as we had planned. Couldn't be happier.
It's a young team as well. All of this kind of coming together here relatively recently.
Indeed.
So for them to perform at a high level right out of the box, what does that say about the team you've assembled?
Yeah, it really means a lot. You know, without them, we wouldn't be here. So all the work we put in here at the track, back home, support from my family and friends, my parents, most importantly, my girlfriend, Krista, and little puppy, Lucia. Without them, we wouldn't be here, so it all paid off for us.
Will we see you at Sonoma?
It seems like we probably will be at Sonoma, yes.
Awesome. We look forward to it. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of Minnesota magic right there for Ryan Gates. Nice job.
Really nice guy. Congratulations.
Yeah, superb effort this season, this event, and we hope to see a lot more of him as this season unfolds, to be sure. So, meanwhile, George Kurtz continues to lead the margin, up by about 7 seconds, clear of Martin Barkey right now, overall and in Pro-Am. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with AWS, with CrowdStrike, and with Optima Batteries. And here we go. There's Martin Barkey with David Askew right on his 6 at this, but the guy who's closed in a little bit the last couple of laps, lost a little bit that time, was Fred Poordad, who was taken over in that Wright Motorsports number 20. He had actually closed it up a bit, but the fastest guy in the track right now is Martin Fuentes, Cal. Just turned a 47.1 in that number 1 Ferrari. He's got a lot of time to make up to get to Poordad. And Askew would start to battle maybe a little bit in this Pro-Am category here, but he's throwing down some laps.
He is. It's Pro-Am entry. He's running 1, 2, 3 overall right now. So Fuente's got to get by Pordat and get to Askew to really improve his position points-wise. Otherwise, they could indeed lose the championship lead here tonight. But Barkey and Askew is hanging with him. Kurt's doing a really consistent job up at the front. All of these front-running cars running lap times within 2 to 3 tenths of one another, so no real advantage right now. So Kurtz is used to finding winner's circle in 2017 when he won the GTS AM title. He had 9 victories that year, so it's good to see him back at the sharp end again. He made the transition over to GT3. Wasn't immediately comfortable, but as we said before, with the Evo on this Mercedes, he had a good year last year, and he's really stepped up his progress and pace this year, it seemed.
Yeah, and you saw him. He was a little bit racy yesterday and actually caught him out, but that's always a good sign that you feel comfortable and you think you can go after it just a little bit. And right now, Askew is sticking, as you said, right with Barkey. I'm looking at the times, and again, Pordat turning a lap about 4 tenths quicker than Askew, and that's got him back to the 1.5 margin. Right there he comes. And then behind him is Fuentes, who's turned another lap, 5 tenths, half second quicker than anybody on the track.
Fuentes is definitely the fastest guy right now, but Pordat's doing a really nice job after that slight delay on the pit stop. He's running lap times that should enable him to catch the 2 in front of him. The question is then, can he go and chase after George Kurtz with a lot of time still left on this board?
Right. And this is going to be interesting. Chris Wilson, he's the AM and the AM component here, but in that 33 is wickedly quick. And he's got Blackstock, hungry to get through. See how that plays out as Barkey continues to hang on to that second overall. Battle at the front. George Kurtz leads it. Barkey second in that white-black with red highlights, MBRP performance exhaust entry. Right behind him, Dave Askew in the 63. There's the 93 of Blackstock, and he is yet to be able to get by Chris Wilson. And Chris is kind of an anomaly, isn't he, in the rating scenario because of his age. He's listed as an AM, and he was on the outside of the front row yesterday up against some of the pros. He's that quick.
Yeah, it's really a question of where his head is at in terms of what he wants to do with Shelby Blackstock here. I got a feeling he could run very similar pace if he wanted to, because he kind of hung on with Shelby a little bit yesterday at the start of the race. But Hinman's going to be, Blackstock's going to be really fired up. 2 days in a row now where little issues have cropped up to thwart their challenge. Safety car yesterday, the timing of that, and then a bobble on pit lane.
In the stall, and Ryan Marine, what are you hearing about what that may have been all about?
Well, it's pretty simple, guys. Simply put, Shelby hit the wrong button. He was going for the pit speed limiter and instead hit the on-off button, and that led to the stop. So once he got it fired back up, everything's full speed ahead, but that explains the issue.
Well, it's happened before, hasn't it? Not necessarily with these guys, but I think at Bathurst had a couple of drivers that had that problem as well, and it's a lot to manage inside the steering wheels and the cockpits of these cars.
Well, then you're flustered, you're frustrated, yes. You're not thinking straight, and that's the real key right there, I would think, is that he's just so angry that they've lost the lead and potential win to that you suddenly just want to get on with things and you're not thinking straight.
So there's Barkey with Askew right behind him, and Pordat has caught this groove. Now, Pordat, he's not running in their class. The 2 cars in front of him are Pro-Am. Pordat is leading in the AM category, but I'll tell you, I have just been mega impressed with Fred Pordat this weekend.
Yeah, really. I mean, as we said, he got off to a bit of a rough start at Coda in the first rounds of the championship with a little crash in qualifying, and probably threw him off a little bit, but boy, has he really performed here. The team has worked well. Max Root has looked sensational, but the cars look so hooked up, Greg.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about, okay, you got the lead in class, don't throw all the way. With 25 minutes on the board, you got to think that Fred is thinking, I've got to get by these cars and go and chase after the leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And he certainly has some impressive pace, to be sure. And Fuentes, that margin, as fast as he goes, Pordat is matching him now, and he just can't make any inroads. Both of them are easing a little bit toward Askew. Pordat's there, so now Fuentes has hopes that these guys get held up a little bit and he's able to get up there and join the fight. And I'm impressed with Fuente's speed, given that Ferrari was struggling with some overheating issues potentially.
Yeah, we know Martini gives it 1,000,000%. We've seen some Ferrari factory drivers competing in this championship. Martini at times has been as quick as those. So
exactly.
He's one of the quickest guys behind the wheel of a Ferrari. It's the perfect fit.
Yeah, he is. He loves his Ferrari, that's for sure.
He's all about passion for everything he does in life. So
and I
driving
think
a Ferrari just lights his fire, I think.
I think one of the most painful things of these pandemic protocols, which absolutely necessary, completely understand, agree with. It's been remarkable, as we said, what SRO and VIR have managed to put together to ensure the safety, but I do miss sneaking into Martin's rig and getting a cup of his coffee.
Yep. It's the good stuff.
It is that. Well, I'll tell you, David Askew is doing a nice job here. Kurtz is really impressive, but Askew did let Barkey through, but he has not let him get away.
No, he really hasn't. And you can just see in the drive, he's just not making the tiny little mistakes that he's made in years past, and just looks super consistent. Pace is good. Lanes look immaculate. He and his wife are avid sailors, and as we've mentioned throughout the course of this weekend, his daughter Olivia has made her pro racing debut in the TCR class here this weekend, and she's been super impressive as well. So it's a racing family now. And recently David sold his interest in the USALCO business as well, so we can really focus even more and more on his racing, and he just loves to be behind the wheel. Talked to Ryan Dial last week about the team, and he said David's just an addict to motor racing. He just wants to drive all of the time.
Yeah, he is, and I mean, he's really dedicating himself to growing DXDT racing. Last year, they made the first step, adding customer program to it, and it just goes from strength to strength, it seems, as we're watching Barkey here, hanging on to that second overall spot, working his way now down through the roller coaster. Here is your leader, George Kurtz, up the road by about 7.5 seconds. Looking at the times now, and boy, that lap was a beauty by Kurtz. A 47.6, Cal, by George Kurtz, and that margin is up to 8.3 seconds.
Really nice stuff. I'm sure that Colin is talking to George on the radio, just trying to walk him through these final stages of the race. Had a decent start to this year, but getting an overall win would be really, really cool for that driver pairing.
Absolutely, and in the background behind this trio of Barkey, Askew, and Poor Dad, Fuentes just uncorked a 146.5, and he's got the margin to Poor Dad now down to 4 seconds. And he is absolutely flying right now. And a couple more laps if he keeps those margins up. Here he comes. There is Martin Fuentes. And the report was, we talked about overheating. Turns out it's a gearbox that's overheating, not the engine itself. Gearbox overheating. So is there a drive around for that? Do you just have to baby the gearbox a little bit?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So maybe they're just trying to manage the temperatures and not get too extreme early, and maybe they've said, okay, we're good to go here with just 20 odd minutes to go, Martin. Try and chase these guys down. And they're also looking at the big picture of the championship. I mean, if he could catch that group ahead and leapfrog around them,
yes,
then it would only be a 7-point swing to Kurtz and Brown if they continue to hold the lead here till the end.
You may have mentioned it, but in his charge after the stop, Blackstock turned fast lap of the race, lowered it to a 145.299, and then, of course, had to do that drive-through and the like, but he was absolutely flying. Let's Kurt see if the margin, it was 8.1 last time by, 9.1. Boy, Kurtz has hit a zone, hasn't he?
He really has.
This is impressive.
And he's capable of that. I mean,
Yeah,
when he had that 2017 season, just super, super consistent. He had a comfort zone with that McLaren that year. And if he can find that same comfort zone with this Mercedes-AMG Evo kit this year, I think we could see similar results.
Bit of a bobble there at the exit of 3 by Askew. He hangs on to it. Didn't really seem to affect him too much. Looking at it, Martin in that lap alone, Martin just won a 47.2, and trimmed it now from 4 seconds to 2.7, and there he is.
Yeah, he's going to catch him for sure.
Yeah.
So it'll be a great fight to see him try and get through there, because he realizes that there's 2 positions in that threesome that are within his class, so it could be a big points delta.
Maybe the issue with that gearbox overheat was just in traffic, because he's flogging it right now. You see that group in front of you, that carrot is looking awfully close, and you go after it with a serious amount of gusto. George Kurtz continues to lead comfortably at this stage, but Barkey askew, 2nd and 3rd overall there in the Acura and the Mercedes. Right behind them, the AM leader, Fred Pordat, in the right Porsche, and joining that group right there. He's coming down the hill. He's caught Pordat, is Martin Fuentes.
Yeah, Pordat has really lost a lot of ground on this particular lap, Greg. He was right with that 2-car train in front of him, and he's dropped way back right in the clutches of Martin Fuentes. So I'm not sure if he had a little bobble around Oak Tree, but nonetheless that gap is considerably larger than it was on the previous lap.
And Martin, they've been fighting an overheating gearbox is the issue, and he was flying, so I wonder, just thinking about that, if that was a gearbox issue, because it too, you know, relies on air through the gearbox radiators and intercooling systems. And if that just is really affected in traffic here, so he's going to want to get through on Pordat as fast as he can.
It looks like Askew is really quick through that first sector. It looks like he's got about 3 to 4/10 advantage on Barkey. And as you get to the high speed section here, sector 2, Barkey has a bit of an advantage on him. So it's a seesaw battle here. And I think the real key is going to see how disciplined Askew can be if he gets even closer to Barkey and starts to make a lunge for position.
18 minutes and a few seconds left in this 4th round of the GT World Challenge America powered by AWS Championship. Boy, and Pordat ran these guys down in a huge hurry.
Yeah, that was bizarre. Oh, there it is. He's got some kind of technical issue. I think he lost ground coming out of Oak Tree the lap before, because suddenly he was there and then disappeared.
Oh, no. What a race he has been putting in. Max Root did a great opening stint, and Pordat,
lucky that Fuentes was far enough back to not get right underneath his rear bumper there as he just lost power or drive coming off the corner. I'm not sure if he's in a safe zone there. There's a little bit of a area you can get to, but if he's lost total drive right now, he may be stranded there.
Well, David Askew might find himself in an interesting position here right now, where he hasn't been able to figure a way to get by Barkey, but Martin Fuentes is coming up fast, line astern here.
And that's the Pro-Am Championship leader, just to reiterate. So 1, 2, 3, 4 on the road overall are all Pro-Am competitors. So every position that you fight for right now is points.
Kurtz, meanwhile, has stretched his margin to 10.5 seconds right now. He is just, this could be a breakthrough weekend for George Kurtz in GT3 equipment, that's for sure.
Barkey seems to be struggling through this
there.
first sector.
Yeah.
Askew is really thinking about taking advantage of that, sort of like poked his nose down to the inside of turn 4, and Barkey immediately took the road away from him. So for Barkey, he just needs to hit his marks, recognize where his advantage is on this racetrack.
That orange flash was Kurtz. That's the margin he's got right now.
Key is, where is Fred Pordat? Is he out of harm's way, or are we going to see a caution?
Martin picked up the throttle really early there, but Askew gets through 10 pretty well, doesn't he?
He does. He's
Martin
done pretty well all the way
like,
around the racetrack.
Yeah.
I think Barkey is struggling a little bit as a follower. There you see the car stranded there. I don't think they're going to leave that there. But you can tend to get in the rhythm of the guys a little bit slower pace than you. If the car's not working well for Martin Barkey right now, for David Askew, you suddenly get into that rhythm. It's time to pounce. Try and figure out where the advantage you have is and make it stick. And there we see the double yellows.
Well, it should be, you would hope, a fairly quick deal, because the car looked to be able to roll along. And, of course, as the caution comes out, he gets it to restart and takes off. So, as often happens, and it's frustrating, the yellows come out right as a car gets itself going again, but now he's slow, so yeah, he just needs to get into a safe area here as quick as he can so we can go back to racing. Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Pirelli, with Rebellion timepieces, and with Total. Well, and of course, the curious thing here is that 11.5-second margin that Kurtz had is gone. Now, and he was in a rhythm. Can he resume that rhythm? Can Barkey find something? Can Askew get after it? And can Fuentes do something here? This is fascinating. Top 4, top 5 now, as you said, are Pro-Am. As Wilson in the number 33 Windward card, he's been showing some pretty good speed as well. He's going to be a play in that. And it puts Blackstock right up at the back of this queue.
Yeah. And now Blackstock is in. So there's another technical issue going on here.
Examining a tire, it looks like. He felt something in the right rear corner, apparently. Oh, and they're saying that's a maybe. It could be a... Let's check in with Ryan.
Yep, talked to the team, and apparently there were some reports that this car was leaking oil. Shelby said something is broken over the radio and brought the car to pit lane, and I can smell something, guys. It smells like some kind of oil coming from the back of this car, so something is certainly awry.
They were working on that left rear. They went to that and started shaking the wheel, then pulled it off, and...
if the suspension is broken, that can then, with the half shaft and the boot, as they call it, on the end there, start to leak some axle grease out. But it was definitely loose. With the wheel nut was tight, but you could see that the wheel was moving around, so some suspension component has failed there.
It's usually not a very quick fix.
No.
Certainly not 13 minutes worth of fix. So
you use the curbs a lot around here, so over the course of a long weekend, you can certainly have a little bit of failure there, but that'll be disappointing for that whole group. And I think they should be good in terms of the 70% mark. We're quite deep into this race. You got to do 70% of the leaders to score points here, so they should get classified.
And the Acura NSX, the official safety vehicle of the series, has taken off, which means as we see the lights are out on that car, we're going to take off, and Kurtz takes off. So we are going back to green with Kurtz over Barkey. Mercedes over Acura, Mercedes over Ferrari, and Fuentes, as he's coming to the line, he got a little bit of a run here. Will he be able to do something? Looks to the outside, dives to the inside, gonna go late, deep on the brakes. Askew alongside, side by side. Askew almost runs off track. Fuentes is through.
Yeah, David was...
The race has restarted, and Martin Fuentes has restarted with a vengeance, Cal.
He really has. He lined that up perfectly, but meanwhile, Barkey's putting the pressure on Kurtz as Kurtz is trying to find his rhythm here after this restart. Phenomenal move by Martin Fuentes. David Askew tried to resist the challenge there and laid down rubber afterwards, but it was too late.
And Chris Wilson attacking right now on Askew there in the back as well. And Kurtz had this rhythm going here. If he can find it again, he had speed. He was capable here. But Fuentes, he is a man on the move right now. And there's that DXDT crew watching and concerned. Sorry, Cal.
To the left is Jeff Brown, who's Colin Brown's father and engineer this weekend. So they're anxious to see if George can get back into that rhythm and find that lap time once again. I think for him, fortunately, I don't think Barkey is totally happy with the handling on that number 80 machine. We saw that Marcelli was not able to make a lot of ground in the opening stint, and certainly Barkey was hanging on for dear life with the competitors around him. So Martin Fuentes certainly has the carrot there right in front of him. These are positions in class for the championship. He's going to try and go get them.
Martin, that Ferrari seems to be really good on the brakes. If he were a little closer here, I would have thought he would have tried something down into one, but Barkey got through Hogpen pretty effectively this time. And look at this, Chris Wilson go to the outside of David Askew.
Can't quite get there. David does a really nice job of resisting that challenge, but certainly the pressure is on. Chris Wilson has thoughts of getting up in that overall position.
And he ducks down inside, Cal.
Oh, David just rolls speed through there. He's really wide. He's off in the grass. Just manages to hang on to it. Chris Wilson really forced the issue there. David didn't want to get it to him, but just rolled too much speed and ran a little bit wide there on exit. Meanwhile, Kurtz has taken off a little bit. This is the sector where Barkey seems to struggle a little bit compared to the rest of the pack.
Martin just has to be able to stay close. Ooh, piece of bodywork flying there. It may have been from somebody else earlier. Martin, a lot of speed right there.
And this is where he's tempted. I think he can roll speed through here into Oak Tree. Looks to the inside, thinks about it. Barkey closes the door. High risk maneuver if you're going to make it stick through that corner.
Yeah, and the problem is I think that hurt Martin's exit, and that Acura is really good in a straight line, Cal. And he's going to lose some ground here. And Wilson, I think he's somebody to really keep an eye on here.
Yeah, just a guest appearance for the Winwood Racing team, but he's had success already this weekend with a couple of wins in GT4 Sprint X competition with John Allen. Same brand, different machine though, GT3 Mercedes AMG.
And Martin is, whoa, bit of a bobble there. He was trying to carry a huge head of steam. I think he knew if he could get close enough, he could do maybe the outbreak of Barkey, and he ran a little wide down in Hogpen, and that's going to put him right into the clutches, potentially, of Chris Wilson.
Lost him a ton of time there as Wilson is now putting the pressure on. 8 minutes to go. Is there enough time on the board for Wilson to make some moves, get up onto the podium, and chase after the leaders?
See what happens here is, can Martin recover? He's running out of time to do it, and he's lost that chunk of ground. And Kurtz has himself a little bit of a margin. Now, last time by, it was about 9/10, Cal. It looks like it might be about a second and a half. And
Yeah.
Martin's got to regroup here in a hurry.
He does. Time is not on his side right now, so certainly Barkey is really quick through this second sector. It's that first sector that he's struggling with the car a little bit, I feel. But nonetheless, Kurtz is looking pretty confident up front. Managed to extend that lead a little bit on that last lap. It's been a while since he's seen victory lane, so the pressure will mount here each lap towards the checkered flag. Things run through your head, don't make a mistake. And this is a track where you've just got to really release the brakes, roll the speed, don't overslow the car, don't charge the corner. Just maintain that flow and rhythm that he's developed so far in this race.
Do not drop tires onto that grass. That's the other part of it here. That is an absolutely crucial component here. Down through the roller coaster, 7 minutes remaining in round 4. And a battle at the front, 4 cars. And I'm sure for Kurtz, he just can't believe he had 11 seconds in hand and that caution came out, but that's the nature of the racing world. And you've got to be able to cover it and deal with it. So far, he's done a beautiful job, Cal.
What a race it is at the front. 4 different brands racing hard for victory here at VIR. There's Mercedes leading Acura, leading Ferrari, leading Mercedes.
There's Kurtz, Barkey, and Fuentes is right there again. He has run down Barkey. But they're heading into that part of the track where that Acura is pretty strong.
Yeah, that's the sector he struggles, sector 1, and then he's up to speed here. Going to be tough for Martin to do anything with him up through this sector. He stretches it out a little bit. A lot of dust and clag on the side of the road. You can't afford to make a little error and miss your line at this stage of the day.
That is the exit of 10 up into Oak Tree. Hugely important
wide.
corner. Kurtz looked a little, wide there. And Fuentes all over Barkey as they exit Oak Tree and start the run down what they call Madison Avenue. Top 4 overall in Pro-Am. An immense battle at the front here. Kurtz a little wide in Oak Tree, gave up a little bit of time to Barkey in that white Acura, then the red and black Hublot Ferrari all over the back of Martin Barkey. It's Martin working over Martin at this stage, with Chris Wilson watching as well as the DXDT crew.
Yeah, tense moments here with just over 5 minutes to go. Still anyone's game. Kurtz has the lead. He's had the lead. He's looked confident, but we saw a little bobble there through turn 11 into Oak Tree on that last lap. Almost threw it all away. He's got to focus. Just keep hitting his marks. Don't panic. Just do what he's done so many times before. Take it to victory lane. Wilson starting to put the pressure on Fuentes for third.
I was just going to say, he showed the nose there big time. Just under 5 to go. That means this lap and 2 more is what we owe. Martin really slow there. Looked like he just couldn't get the power down. Martin is just chomping at the bit here. See what happens, and Wilson lurking in that silver windward Mercedes.
Yeah, and through that first sector, Kurtz pulls about 3 to 4 tenths on Barkey in the NSX, so that Mercedes really seems to have an advantage through there. But then as we wind it up through the high-speed S's and down this back stretch, the Acura really comes into its own. Barkey doing a great job resisting the pressure from behind from the much more experienced Martin Fuentes. Wilson right there on the bumper of the Ferrari, trying to get the power down a little bit earlier. His car looking like it's handling a little bit better late in the going.
Martin ran a little wide there, and that Ferrari started really bounding around, and that cost you exit momentum. And you could see Barkey eases away, and Wilson coming up, thinking about it here, but couldn't quite get close enough down into the roller coaster.
We saw yesterday that the NSX just had a little bit more speed than the Ferrari at the end of the race yesterday. Baptista got rounded up by both Marcelli and Hindman. So it's going to be tough for Martin to make something stick here as we look at Colin Brown, who looks on as his teammate George Kurtz continues to lead.
And the question is, did Martin get that run he needed? No, he's not close enough. Barkey doing just enough through Hogpen to give him that bit of room here. You can see how
laps to go.
Yeah, you can see how Martin still closes it up. So if he's closer to Martin coming out of Hogpen, he might be able to do something. But Martin is fast right now in all the spots he needs to be.
All of the hard work, all of the testing, all of the driver coaching that Colin Brown has provided to George Kurtz needs to come into play right now. They've got a good race car underneath them. They've been quick all weekend long. Can they pull off a victory?
Yep, they have this lap, and we should see the white flag coming out at the end of this lap. Right now, the top 4 are covered by 1.6 seconds. This is great stuff. And ask you just a little bit farther back in the queue right now after that bit of a moment. And this is it, up into Oak Tree.
This is the tricky one. This is where you can't afford to make a mistake. Wilson there, pretty conservative with this line. Doesn't get towards the edge of the road, doesn't want to get in those marbles. But does he have to force the issue a little bit if he's going to gain another position and get on that podium?
Boy, this is as close as Martin has been. Can he pick up any kind of a draft? It's just that Acura strong at the end. Martin's showing the nose. It's just not close enough.
It's off the Barkey. He hasn't bobbled.
He's doing a brilliant job here.
He's not quite got the pace through that first sector as some of the other cars, but he just hasn't made a mistake. He's resisted the pressure.
Well, that last turn there is where Martin has got to get a run and be close. And again, Barkey gets through there just well enough. White flag, 1 lap to go here, round 4 of GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Wilson again closes it up.
Fuentes is close. Fuentes is going to try and get his elbows out here on this next half lap, I think. He's going to get around Barkey. He needs to do it in the next 2 or 3 corners, I feel. Oh, and Kurtz is wide. Missed his turn in a little bit. Pressure is back on his shoulders.
Barkey is there. Fuentes, Wilson. That margin that I said was about 1.5. Well, it's down under almost under a second for the top 4. Fabulous stuff here. And the AM drivers of the Pro-Am combinations putting on one heck of a show, Cal.
Wow, just a couple of small blips, but he hasn't opened up the door yet. We saw it in turn 11. We saw it there in turn 3 for George Kurtz. He's just hanging on by his fingernails right now. Can he secure this last lap? Colin Brown looks on. He says, give me the timing screens. I want to look and see where he's at.
Martin needs to get the exit of the ages here this time. It was okay, wasn't great.
Acura's got good straightaway speed,
Yeah.
but I think Kurtz has enough of a gap to take the pressure off as they get to the brake zone, up to the roller coaster.
Boy, everybody's just got to be precise here. Hit your marks. Martin right there. Kurtz doing what he needs to do in that CrowdStrike AWS DXDT Mercedes. The MBRP Performance Exhaust Racer's Edge Acura of Barkey. Nice job as well. Here comes Fuentes in the Hublot Ferrari. And Barkey gets a great run, but it's not quite enough. And it is going to be a win for CrowdStrike AWS and DXDT here at VIR. There's Colin Brown, his dad right next to him. And George Kurtz doing what he had to do, Cal, to bring it home. The official margin of victory, 0.2 of a second. And the top 4 covered by 1.2 seconds. Kurtz, Barkey, Fuentes, and Wilson. What a show.
That was awesome. Congratulations to George Kurtz. He hung on there, had a couple of little bobbles, but immense pressure from behind. Just a great race there between that top 4.
And this has got to do a world of good for the confidence of George Kurtz moving forward in this championship. And that's going to be very, very special indeed. Martin Barkey fending off pressure from a very quick Martin Fuentes in that Hublot Ferrari. He's going to be happy with that, I think. And Wilson sure keeping things interesting here, just missing the overall podium. I can only imagine the size of the grin inside that helmet right now for George.
He wants to get back and celebrate. He's not hanging around.
Yeah. He's hustling it here. And, I mean, Fuentes has got to be pleased with the charge that he was able to put on and get up and join this battle. Obviously, for the overall, it was caused by that caution, but he was there at the back of that other group before that happened. And I think it's maybe tempered a little bit with a little frustration and just not figuring out a way to get through there.
Yeah, it was almost like a tennis match. You needed a break serve. There was some mini breaks going on. There were some little bobbles, but George Kurtz, great job. That was an incredible drive with that yellow. He had such a comfortable lead to see all erased with that safety car. And the irony is just as the safety car was deployed, suddenly the 20 car, Fred Portad, found power again and took off. But nonetheless, it just made it even more exciting at the finish, and one that he'll certainly relish for many years to come. And maybe this is the turnaround. Maybe they can now become a regular visitor to Victory Lane once again.
Yeah, what a run, no question. You know, after having that big margin, almost 12 seconds, evaporate with that caution, that's when you can just throw things away, you know what I mean, by letting it get to you. And he didn't. He just stayed solid and tried to find that rhythm again. That was impressive.
For Martin Barkey, I mean, he looked like he was struggling to hang on, and then suddenly you get that reset, and it's like, okay, I've got to go from defensive to offensive and try and win this race with a car that I don't think he was totally happy with, but nonetheless, a brilliant performance by Martin to bring it home in second.
Yeah, absolutely. Then Fuentes, Wilson, and finishing 5th overall, John McGrew, team with Bill Sweedler in the number 31 TR3 Racing. Tommy Cooper and Stanley Ferrari doing a nice job in their first weekend. They sweep the AM class with a couple of wins, but look at this celebration. I think that was a hug of celebration and massive relief.
It really was, and George has been a big supporter of Collins Racing, so great to see them get success together.
Yeah, absolutely remarkable. And I'll tell you, these AMs put on an absolutely wonderful show here in that great battle here right at the end of this 4th round of the championship, and enjoying a moment down in Victory Circle. Celebrations about to unfold in Victory Circle. George Kurtz just getting out of that beautiful CrowdStrike AWS DXDT Mercedes. Teammate Colin Brown was waiting for him there. And I'll tell you, this place is going to be even more special to them than ever. Last year, they had a double podium here, or in the second race, they had a podium, a second place. It was the first top 3 for this pairing at this level. And then they come back a year later and get the first win and make it an overall win at that for this pairing of George Kurtz and Colin Brown. That's pretty special stuff. And getting ready putting on the safety gear per the protocols. Appreciate that. Kelly Broulier, K-Brew down there, helping out as well. Let's take a look at the results here and look at that 1.2 seconds for those top 4.
Yeah, amazing run, and just good fun to see them going out hard at it. A lot of respect there, gave each other enough racing room. Couple little bobbles, but George just hung on there. Brilliant first victory of the season.
Yeah, it was absolutely great over the Acura of Marcelli and Barkey, then the Ferrari of Fuentes and Baptista, and the Mercedes from Windward of Ward and Wilson. And then 5th there, John McGrew and Bill Sweedler taking another win. Yes, there were some issues for Fred Portet and Max Root, who were without doubt a bit quicker, but they were able to bring it home and get another win. And then David Askew and Ryan Dial just had an issue late there, dropped back in the order. And then Trent Hinman and Shelby Blackstock had great speed, just had some mechanical issues and a little bit of bad luck in that pit stop as well. But I'll tell you, what a race. Let's get down to Ryan Marine.
Well, George Kurtz, he's a former GTSA champion, but the long-awaited GT3 win comes today. Describe for us, if you could, the pressure of those final few laps and the relief once you took the checkered flag.
Well, first I got to thank DXDT and Mercedes, just a great car, and the new car is fantastic. So yeah, we had a pretty good race. Obviously Colin did a fantastic job, gave me a big lead, I extended it, and then I saw the car on the back straight and I knew we were going to have a restart, and I knew the fight was going to be on. So, you know, with a couple minutes left, I just buckled down and just focused on pulling a gap away from Barkey, who did a great job, and you know, it's a special win with this guy.
Well, congratulations, George. We'll bring in your longtime coach, Colin Brown. You've been working with George for a long time. How much pride do you take in his performance today and your ability to share it with him?
Yeah, I mean, super special. Obviously for CrowdStrike, for DXDT, you know, seeing the way the race unfolded, we obviously had a little bit of a gap there. The yellow came out, it fell back on George's shoulders to really push hard there at the end, and you know, to see him sort of, you know, finish off that race like he did. He didn't just get in and have a gap and finish the race. I mean, he had to earn it. Every single second counted. That's sort of CrowdStrike's motto. And so really cool to see him be able to drive at that level. And, you know, for me, I've coached him for a long time. And so obviously it's easy when you've got a good guy like George. But, you know, seeing him actually execute like that was super special. Our Mercedes obviously was hooked up all weekend. We were fast, you know, kind of in all the practices. And just a real team effort. I mean, the guys have been working so hard, even during these breaks, polishing these cars, getting them sorted out. So definitely a special day.
Awesome performance today.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could hear the pride in Colin Brown's voice there talking about George, and you could hear the emotion in George's about getting this first overall win and Pro-Am win together.
And I was worried on that restart. I'm like, if we get through Oak Tree and into
and now the bench racing starts. People talking about it. What's that? Look at that. George going #1, baby. Yeah, that was that was
choked
wonderful.
up there.
He did. You could hear it. And,
it means a lot. I mean, he works really hard at his business, so successful there, and to come to his relaxation point and succeed here as well is big. I mean, this is a different level. I mean, he won that GTSA championship back in 2017, but this is at a whole different level. And for him to, you know, not succumb to that pressure there in those final few laps, as his teammate Colin Brown said, was super.
Yeah, I mean, as he said, he had to earn it, and he did. And those, that's awfully satisfying, no question about that. And, you know, Martin Barkey and certainly Kyle Marcelli, another great day for them. Second place finish in the number 80 MBRP Performance Exhaust Racer's Edge Acura, and Fuentes and Baptista. They figured out a way to hustle that car with that overheating gearbox, and Fuentes went on a massive charge in that Hublot Alpha Prime Squadra Corsa Ferrari. And then Chris Wilson just kept everybody honest at the end there in that Windward machine, that TechMed entry.
Yeah, there was great performances throughout this field here this weekend. We're really seeing some of these AM drivers step up. I mean, David Askew looked really strong here this weekend. Fred Portet, what a performance he put on board with that Wright Motorsports Porsche alongside young Max Root. He showed and strutted his stuff early on today, so he's the star of the future as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question of that. And you know, for the second straight day, a mechanical for that Wright Motorsports Porsche, but the speed that that duo has is mighty impressive. And I think I could easily see that if they stay together for a while, their Pro-Am stuff next year for sure. I think there's any question of that. So we take a look here at the results. Once again, you see McGrew and Sweedler for TR3 Racing. And that Stanley and Tommy Cooper Ferrari, just a great run. I mean, they didn't have quite the pace, certainly, of Root and Poor Dad. But then again, Bill hasn't raced in a while. McGrew races Ferraris, but in Ferrari Challenge, which is a very different version of the 488. And for them to step in, McGrew got roughed up a little bit yesterday in the race and came back from that. And they managed to get a win and earn another one today. Yeah,
I thought they had impressive pace. I mean, ultimately, weekend didn't finish off the way they wanted it to with a few issues, but nonetheless, Wheeler was up on the wheel as we always expected and had the class victory yesterday.
And then, of course, the speed of Blackstock and Hinman was unquestioned, but that little glitch with the pit stop and then the pit speed limit and then that mechanical issue took its toll. That is one beautiful racing machine, and they never look prettier than they do when they're first into victory circle. Let's get back down to Ryan.
Thanks, Greg. We got our AM winners here as well. Bill Sweedler, first pro race since 2018, I think. Yesterday, a win then and a win today. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's just amazing to be back in Virginia. I won here in 15, and I just absolutely love it here. It's even more special to be in a Ferrari. I've got to thank TR3 Racing, amazing team. Frankly, the track was unbelievable. The car was unbelievable, and my co-driver in his first pro race in Pirelli World Challenge, he did an amazing job. So got to thank Ferrari as usual. Just ironclad car.
Well done today. John, real quickly, if we could, how did you enjoy this step up to GT3 racing?
Oh man, it's such a different kind of car. Handles completely differently. And so it took a lot of getting used to, but it was a huge amount of fun because of that difference. And I want to say thanks to Bill for inviting me. He's such a great racer, a great friend, and also to Greg and the whole TR3 team. They did a fantastic job getting the car ready.
Hope to see you at a future race as well. Congratulations.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we sure do. And on my entry list, it said Tommy Cooper, and it's actually Tommy Copper. So I wanted to make sure that correction. Supporter and partner of Bill Sweedler, and get that one right, along with Stanley and Bridgewater for John McGrew. And here's a look at the points now. And as you can see, that DXTT Racing Squad very close right now over Squadra Corsa than Racer's Edge. And these team points are mean a lot to these teams.
They really do. It's all about execution, and certainly the DXDT Racing team did a great job of that this weekend with ultimately the overall win and winning the Pro-Am class.
Having a look here at the nose of that Hublot Ferrari, and things that continue unfolding down in the victory circle and staging area. And let's take a look at some highlights from this one. And there were a few, certainly at the start. Trent Hinman off into the lead, but immediately Max Root racing along the outside of Colin Brown.
Yeah, tried to make it stick there, but Ryan Dial just gets the power down and just clears Max Root as they enter turn 3. Had to get pretty aggressive there with his line to make it stick.
Did, though, and everybody funneling through, and this is a very serpentine technical piece of track. Lots can happen on opening laps, and everybody relatively clean through there. And there was Ryan Gates in the GT Sports Club, the 311 RS Racing team for Porsche, that was just absolutely hooked up. And then first into the pits after he got the win was that car, but problems coming out of the pits, Cal.
Yeah, well, they did a pit stop. They had to do a drive-through penalty for pit lane speed infraction, and then when Blackstock came out, he hit the on-off button instead of the pit lane speed limiter button. He had a momentary stall. Not a great day for that team.
And Martin Fuentes, after the stop, started to mount a serious charge here. And this was a great little scrap. Martin ran him down, and suddenly, for Poor Dad, a mechanical issue. He slowed coming out of Oak Tree.
That caused the safety car period. They pulled him out of harm's way, and then we saw a sensational 4-car battle at the end here for the lead.
And this was the pass by Martin Fuentes down underneath Dave Askew, and was able to move through, pick up that third spot. But for George Kurtz up front, he had a 12-second margin evaporate with that caution, and he came back, held onto it, and gets the first win for the pairing of Kurtz and Brown. At the same place they got their first podium together. Special stuff with a wonderful drive by George, and boy did he earn that one.
Thank you.
And that was the vehicle that they did it in, so some great stuff. Let's look ahead now, Cal. This track, VIR, is very special in its own right. Next round of the championship a little over a month away in Sonoma. Couldn't be more different.
No, it's a lot different. I mean, it's a racetrack that doesn't have a ton of grip, has a lot of elevation change, one that the drivers enjoy, but it's good to be back racing at some of the classic venues around North America.
Boy, isn't it special indeed. Looking forward to the season continuing here in GT World Challenge America.